It's called meeting to order. Last month, minutes, approval of minutes. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Now we will have matters by the public. Sherelle Cox. Let me encourage you to keep it to 5 minutes.
Okay. Do I
Wait
stand
for you
here?
to get to say. Yes.
Just keep it Come a little closer. Hello, how you guys doing today?
Good.
I am a new or fixed route driver here. I'm just going to read from my phone what I wrote. All right. On Juneteenth, I was asked a question. What do I like about this company? RMTD has been a cornerstone of the community for years, providing transportation services that countless individuals depend on daily. The company's commitment to serving Rockford and surrounding areas has never wavered, and it's something I truly appreciate. Every day we contribute to the mobility of this city and the lives of its people. It's work that matters. However, no company can stand still. We must evolve, not just in how we serve the public, but in how we care for the people who make this organization run, the workers. We wrote a proposal for paid leave for all employees because we believe that everyone deserves time to take care of themselves and their families without worrying about losing pay. It was a proposal that met with interest, especially the idea of providing paid leave to employees within their first 12 months of service. Unfortunately, that initiative did not come to fruition. And while I'm disappointed, I'm not deterred because Illinois law, specifically 820 ILCS 192, section 5C, makes it clear that nothing in the Paid Leave for All Workers Act prohibits companies from adopting more generous policies than what's required by law. It says nothing in this act should discourage employers from providing paid sick leave, paid vacation, or paid holidays beyond what the law mandates. In fact, it even encourages employers to allow paid leave earlier than the act requires. So why shouldn't RMTD, an organization that has always strived to do right by its employees and its passengers, lead by example? Why not be the company that says, we value you enough to ensure that your well-being isn't compromised, whether you've been here for 12 days or 12 years? And here's something else we need to talk about. We allowed the company to make changes outside of the collective bargaining agreement before, and these changes haven't always been in our favor. So why does it seem that when we push for changes that would improve our working conditions, changes like paid leave or better routes, those same adjustments are off the table unless they fit squarely within the contract? Why can't we make changes for the betterment of all of us just as easily as changes have been made for the company's operations? Now I want to address something else that's impacting both employees and passengers. Recently, the board approved new route changes. While the changes are well intended, they came about without input from drivers, dispatch, or other staff members. These changes have caused major shift in work-life balance for many of us. A lot of our customers have been affected as well, and not all the changes have been positive. For example, we used to have a bus to Cherryville Mall every hour at the half-hour mark. Now, with 2 different times, one heading westbound and the other eastbound. It's made it easier for some customers to get to work, but harder for others to arrive on time. These new routes have also impacted driver schedules. We've seen our downtime shrink with less opportunity to take a break, grab something to eat, or even use the bathroom. These are practical concerns that deserve attention. We need input from the people who work these routes every day to ensure changes benefit both customers and employees. Another example of our concerns being overlooked is something as simple as a request I made for a water machine and a bigger refrigerator in the driver's room at the dispatch office.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Concierge. But feel free to email it to the board members and to our executive director, and duly noted that we will address your concerns.
Thank you.
All right. Executive director's report.
All right, thank you. First off, I'd like to again recognize those RMT employees who are celebrating an anniversary this month. As of this meeting, we thank the founding employees for continued dedicated service to the RMT and the community. Christy Flint, Paratransit Dispatch Supervisor, 29 years. Ron Shepard, Director of Finance, 24 years. Ernest Ballard, Fixed Route Operator, 24 years. Cedric Ketton, Fixed Route Operations Manager, 24 years. Waltenberger, Fixed Route Operations Supervisor, 23 years. Julio Rios, Paratransit Operator, 21 years. Gregor I. Hanser, Fixed Route Operator, 19 years. Marcy Longstreet, Fixed Route Operator, 16 years. Will Blankenship, Bueller, 11 years. Will Tidwell, Custodian, 8 years. Robert Carter, Fixed Route Operator, 8 years. Eric Vines, Paratransit Operator, 7 years. And one Sherelle Cox, Fixed Route Operator, 1 year.
All right.
So we'd like to thank all those employees for the continued service. So with that then, a couple other items to address with the board and to provide updates on. State legislative update. You've probably seen a number of press clippings on this, but the Senate Transportation Committee has been meeting and conducting hearings throughout the state on the current conditions of the RTA region and funding that's associated with that. Just for the board's note, on October 16th, they'll be conducting a hearing in Springfield to discuss funding transit as a statewide priority. And the Illinois Public Transit Association and other members of advocacy groups will be providing testimony for that. So we're involved with the Illinois Public Transportation group, and we will be participating in that, providing feedback on that. Recently, you may have noted the House Speaker has announced the formation of a working group, House members to review funding options as well. So now on the Senate side, and the House side is working on looking at different options all around primarily the RTA region funding issue that was identified. While we are continuing work on preparing a package for IPTA, outlining the downstate funding situation and what elements of that formula that currently exists may need to be addressed in preparation for the potential fall veto session. Most feedback now indicates that the legislature may not take the cause until the spring session, but again, the state association will be prepared to discuss those issues with the legislature in the meantime. So probably a few updates on this as we've gone along. Obviously, a priority item within the district and all those in downstate concerning the viability of the downstate operating assistance program, which funds 65% of our operations. So we'll be watching that and participating in those discussions. On the federal side, the latest on that, again, the House is working on a continuing resolution for the FY25 budget appropriation. There's a potential for it's been a continuing concern for potential for government shutdown. It sounds like, based on the comments coming out of Washington this week, that a continuing resolution is likely that would allow all the federal programs to be funded up until December. And then December comes around, they'll be having a discussion on the continuing that funding, really on the FTA side, where our federal funding comes from. No immediate impact, whether or not they passed a continuing resolution or not. The federal programs, the transit are funded up and through, for the most part, the half of the year, when we get our appropriation, a half appropriation, no matter what, to continue funding us through the first 6 months of the year. So that would continue no matter what. The real impact on the federal side with these federal appropriations is whether or not they release discretionary grant programs, which we've relied on to purchase buses. So that's the real concern at this point, is the longer that takes, and depending what level they funded at will determine when those discretionary programs will be released. And typically those get released in the spring. So that's how why we're monitoring that. Just as you see news coming out, that's kind of how the transit fund fits into those discussions and appropriation bill. And then the other part of that is that, you know, FY25 is the second to last year, which the federal programs are funded. FY26 is the last year. And so we'll be back at the table talking about the industry as a whole, what the funding will be in the next authorization plan. So very quickly, the bipartisan infrastructure law is winding down, and discussions are already ramping up for the next bill. So that's the next thing that we'll start hearing updates on. So just want to provide those couple updates to you on what's happening both at the state level and Washington. So with that, we can get on to the rest of the agenda. As noted earlier, we were going to move up item EA, which is the approval of the infrastructure, the insurance renewal. So that'll be after the E2 finance report. So we'll start with the finance report. Williams McCarthy services rendered through July 24 and August 23rd of 2024. Are there any questions on that?
Not for me.
Okay. So then we'll move on to AGHL services rendered through June 30th, July 31st, and August 31st. Any questions on that? Okay, if there's none on that, then we will submit to you the approval of accounts payable invoices this week for $4,371,887.57. As noted on that, we have the 4 hybrid buses that we received orders on that make up the bulk of that this month's invoices. So we have a motion to approve, or have you answer any questions otherwise?
I did have a question
Yeah.
on the shelters.
Yeah.
Is that mostly are those for new, or is repairs, or both?
So those are new shelters, and we'll have an update on that a little bit later, but we did buy those with local capital funds. Those weren't state funded or federally funded. We had some federal capital. We purchased 6 of those for, and we'll be deploying those at 5 of the 6 locations. Hopefully yet this fall. The city's working on completing bus pads for us to put those on. So locations include, there's 2 or 3 at the airport that on Airport Drive that we're doing for UPS in the main terminal, Auburn High School, and one's for a shelter project at Valley View on State Street. Across the street from the current shelter, the city's got a project that they didn't get started this year that hopefully starts next year. That one shelter will be a part of. And I think that's it. North Main and just south of Riverside. That's the system. So if there's no other questions, then we'll have a motion to approve the accounts.
I'll move that we approve the accounts payable invoices.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item of business is the audited financial statements for July 2024. So the first report of the year is out, and as you can see, we are positive budget-wise in terms of expenses down. Operating revenues are also down. So that's the first one of you. Any questions on that one? First month read. So and also in relation with that being out, that comes up first draw with the state for the month and submit that. Expected to do first month read expenses here. No other questions on that? Then a motion to approve statement.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Next item is the statement, the pension portfolio review for the period through September 17th and the pension investment statement for the month ending August 31st. We have Mr. Benedetto from the Benedetto Associates here to go over that with us.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to join you today. In your packets, we have two reports. The first is the one that's a little more colorful that matches the calendar year performance for the pension. I'll go through that first. Year to date on the far right column, we started the year with just under 29 million. We have half of the contribution allocated by the actuaries deposited, the 775 so far. The withdrawals indicates the payments to the pensioners in the pension program. And then those next three lines we have are all related to growth for an ending value last Tuesday at 31,435,294. And our total growth in the portfolio this year is just over $2.8 million. If you follow that down to the middle section, as a percentage, we are up just under 10%. So in spite of what we see going on in the news with the markets are up this year, both stock and bond. Below in the asset allocation, you can see where the money is allocated. Overall, the stock investments that we have total just under 65%, and the bond and fixed income or cash total just over 35%. Big questions on that overview. If not, I'll move to the fiscal year, which we track as well. That's the more simple looking page. So 630, you can see through 2.5 months, we've actually done quite well. So started this quarter at just over 30,500,000. We finished last Tuesday at 31,435,000, up $1.1 million, or up 3.73%. Noting just for Ashley, all of the fees that we represent here are net of all fees, our fee and investment management fees in total. So that is the net. Our goal for the actuaries is somewhere in the 6% range. So we've started with a bang and hopefully we will continue that. I'll just note that performance-wise in the portfolio, we've seen small cap growth really carry the weight so far in the 2.5 months, as well bonds. With interest rates moving down, you may recall we talk about bonds sometimes as rates move up. Rates move down, prices move up. So the bonds that we own are worth more. So we're seeing them really shine in the portfolio to date. Beyond that, as far as what's doing well in the portfolio, there's three things that are really moving the markets right now, both stock and bond. One is the Federal Reserve. As we saw last week, they lowered interest rates by 0.5%. I think that was a little bit of a surprise. Most were expecting a quarter, and I think that's because the Fed's goal is to achieve in 2025 a soft landing so that we don't go into some kind of a recession that affects the stock and bond market. The second piece that we are keeping an eye on is the election. We're not going to have a political discussion today, but I will tell you that a majority of the time in an election year, the stock market finishes positive, and that has to do with uncertainty. The stock and bond markets don't like uncertainty, and once the election is over, they know where the money is going to flow for the next 4 years. So that's a good thing, and that should have a positive effect to the portfolio through the year end. The last piece, which seems to be having a minimal effect on the stock and bond markets, but I think it's a concern, are the struggles overseas. I think we have multiple wars going on that we're participating in, and at any moment in time, may have to engage in. And so far, the markets and the economy are ignoring them, but certainly that is a concern, and we'll have to see where that goes moving forward. The only other bit that I have for you is I know Mike is working to get the second part of the pension contribution deposited. When we do that, we'll look at reallocating. We obviously want to make sure we have enough cash to fund pension payments, but beyond that too, then it's a good time to assess the portfolio. We may do some rebalancing at that time, and I will keep you abreast of that when we do it. Any questions for me?
Questions?
Great. Thank you. It's always easier when the market's up in companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff.
Thank you.
See you. All right. On the next item of business, I had mentioned item E8. E8, other business item A, moved up for our guests here today to present on our annual insurance program proposal and renewal. So with us from Marsh McClellan Agency, who is our insurance broker for this segment, we have Bob Dufkus and Miranda Leininger who share results of their marketing effort and where we have a proposal in front of us to use. Miranda?
Good afternoon, everybody. Do you want to start? Sorry.
No, say, Dan, did you want us to start? I mean.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Wherever.
Okay.
Okay.
So we wanted to turn the attention to the premium summary. And then we will go into the details about why the increase is, at the number it is. So if you guys can please turn to page 9.
So you'll see in the premium summary here, we're looking at a pretty steep increase in the insurance renewal for this year. This is primarily being driven by the auto line of insurance, which is your auto liability and physical damage coverage for the fleet of buses. When we look at that, you'll see that there are 3 new premiums in the renewal premium column that have to do with excess physical damage. And so going back to when we started this process several months ago, we knew that we were going to run into a few hurdles because the loss history has been pretty poor. And we know that the market is shifting because of electric vehicles and the concern over fires and things like that. So we knew we had some challenges to overcome there. What we didn't anticipate and that we found out in late July was that the insurance company decided to reduce the physical damage coverage to $5 million. So essentially what that means is your fleet value is just under $35 million if you had to replace all of your buses. So to only give you $5 million in coverage, should you have a catastrophic loss, we felt that that was going to be a big hurdle. And so we knew we needed to get that number up. So we had several conversations with the insurance company and we were able to get them to agree to offer 20 million, but we still had a gap of 15 million. So those 3 additional premiums that you see in that column are coming from that excess physical damage coverage. So what we're doing is we're showing you the premium to buy that coverage up to the full value of your fleet. We feel it's important that you have that coverage should there be a tornado or a fire situation where all of your buses are garaged and you lost everything at once. You want to make sure you have enough insurance to replace all of those vehicles. So on top of a pretty hefty increase in the rates because of loss history, you're also seeing that additional premium for that additional coverage that we talked about. So that's really driving the bulk of the increase. In the other lines, you're seeing fairly static increases as far as just based on exposure changes when you're talking about general liability, public officials liability. The excess liability, which is additional limits on top of your primary, really falls in line with what the underlying is. So when you see those big shifts in the underlying auto premium, you'll also see those in the excess premium. And then we did see some reductions in premium on your fiduciary liability and your cyber liability this year. And a discussion was had about the cyber liability. We did offer a couple of options for increased limits in that area. We're purchasing $1 million right now. We offered $2 and $3 million limit options, And because there was some savings in some of those lines of coverage, the decision was made to bump that up to $3 million. Since cyber is we're in such a scary cyber world right now. We feel like the more you can buy, the better. So you'll see that reflected in the premium summary as well, that you're going from a 1 million cyber to a 3 million cyber limit. There's not too much else to note other than some deductible changes. Your property deductible is moving from 5,000 to 10,000, and the deductible for the fixed route buses is going from 10,000 to 25,000 this year.
And I do want to mention that the insurance carrier Travelers, when they when they decreased the limits to 5 million, obviously it was very disappointing. And with further discussions, they did increase the limit to 10. Dan and Mike and Drex, they came up to our office and we met with Travelers and the decision makers at Travelers. And after meeting Dan, Mike, and Drex, they decided they went to their home office and they felt that it was worth fighting to get the full 20. And that's what happened. So I want to just at least let you know that, you know, if it wasn't for those three coming up to our office and meeting with Travelers, we would probably be at 10. So it was their influence and their explanation of the operations and you know, what they were doing on a day-to-day basis that really made the difference. And that's what they told us. So
yeah, in terms of the summary on what we budgeted for moving outstanding.
Yeah, we're pretty close to, we budgeted a total of just over 1.2 million for that line item. That line item does include $250,000 for some payouts, which it could be zero, it could be 500,000, just don't know at this point. But thanks to, we didn't really project like this high, but we're still gonna be within budget on it, I think. So staff is recommending to go with the recommendation at the what's the total premium though? 1,196,131.
Questions?
I had a couple just on the coverage for this year. Was our previous coverage only covering up to the 5 million prior, or is this a change in? Okay.
It is a change. Yeah, you were getting the full coverage prior. But what's happening in the public transit insurance market, if you will, this is becoming kind of a bigger issue market wide. And so we're seeing this happen as we called a lot of other insurance companies as well. This is becoming more of the norm that they're limiting that coverage because of all the convective storms, mainly tornadoes in this area. Wind and hail are such a big driver of claims. So they're trying to minimize the impact that those types of catastrophes have on their bottom line.
and it's also the electric buses that they have a concern about.
The battery
batteries.
fires are really scary to the underwriters, so.
And that's a huge driver of why they did what they did.
So the other line drives that.
I guess kind of a follow-up question to that then on our excess physical damage. I see that's amongst a few different providers. How does that work then? God forbid we have a full claim or a partial claim of who decides to step in when after we meet our 5 million threshold, who's like, I'll take the excess.
So your first 20 is still going to be provided by Travelers, which is who you've been with. And then those other 3, it's actually called a quota share. So what they do, it's one policy, if you will, but they have 3 insurance companies that are coming together to each provide a third of the limit. So if you did have a claim, we would report it to everybody and they would all pay their share. So you'd have 20 from Travelers and then 5, 5, and 5 from the other 3.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Convenience. Moving forward with renewal.
Yeah. Thanks to the staff both for getting us, we presented today and then also for the budgeting too, so.
I'll make the motion to approve the insurance renewal for 24-25.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you all.
Okay. So we'll jump back then, in the agenda back up to E3, operations, maintenance, and facilities. In your packet, Dan submitted a summary report, and Dan, why don't you walk us through the report and the other information?
Sure. As was mentioned earlier, our fall service improvement started on 10/1. I'm sorry, 9/1. It's not quite 10/1, is it? Thinking ahead. On 9/1, generally things have gone pretty well. There's a few things, that we need to tweak. It was, I want to give credit to, and T's not here, Lawrence isn't here, but, his guys put up in a short period of time, 99 bus stops. So, they've had quite a bit of work. So, and Cedric as well, getting everything ready and marked. So, it's really a team effort, but overall things have gone well. Like I said, a couple things we need to tweak yet. So, but we're working with that and, getting feedback from people, and we'll make some changes as we move forward. The paratransit, just wanted to note, looking July ridership from 23 to 24. We quite a big jump there from it's steadily rising up. We were just over 7,600 July of, last year. We're over 11,000 July of this year. So, fortunately, we have some new vehicles, and Sue's been able to get us staffed up. So we got more vans on the street every day. Our vehicles and maximum service number has gone up, last couple months on that as well. So, we do have, part of the new buses, in service, and the other two should be ready, yet this week. We had a couple little issues with, an oil leak on one, and, some technical difficulties on the other one, some software. And facilities report, we didn't get the fire sprinklers all done in all the buildings this month. And out at the east side, we had to redo the south sidewalk where the ADA ramps are at. They were popping up and everything and not very safe. So we got those replaced. And Mike, you want to speak to the construction update?
Yeah, well, before we get to that, just in terms of the statistics reports, any questions on the ridership reports?
I had just one question, which was, if you can remind me what MCO and BCCA stand.
MCO is,
Managed care organizations.
and BCCA is Boone County Council on Aging.
Okay, thank you.
So explain the managed care thing in terms of.
Yeah, managed care organization, when you go on Medicaid, you can choose to stay on the regular Medicaid, or you can go to a managed care organization. Here, the Medicaid is, we bill directly to HFS, RPD does ourselves. When it comes to the MCO, we provide vouchers to the individual MCOs, and they can actually give them to their clients, and then they will ride with us and give the voucher to our driver. So it's kind of two separate programs.
Thank you.
It's pretty low activity this last month compared to last year on the MCO side. So,
Well, I think as the economy's got better, there's a lot of private competition.
and as mentioned, Boone County Council of Aging, that's just the urban rides provided by BCC. Doesn't want to be there. Any other questions on the ridership? Otherwise, on the vehicle maintenance report, statistics report, any questions on them? All right, moving on then. Dan, summer hearings, go down that. So the facilities update. So we see good news actually. Last Friday, IDOT came back and signed off on our pre-award concurrence. So that's finally crossed the last hurdle there on their end. So where it stands now is with that done, we've notified the city of Rockford that task has been completed, provided a copy of the letter from IDOT, and now they're going to process through the right-of-way transfer, property transfer, recording the plat, recording the deed. And so our attorneys are working with them to finalize all of those remaining steps on their end to get all of those items documented, transferred, recorded, so the property is transferred to RMT. So hopefully all those steps happen this week. And once those are finalized, then we'll go back to Scandrolli and sign the contract. So finally getting close, right? And then once we have a contract signed with them, then they'll go through the process of getting all their subcontractors lined up and finalizing their schedule. And once we have that, share that with the board, so then we'll have the timeline put together on all of the various steps for the project to move on. Questions?
Overall, is that anticipated to be is that a 2-year project?
Yeah. Total number of days is
760.
760.
give or take.
Okay, so next meeting, we should have quite a bit more in terms of updates to provide as we start speaking. In addition to that, then, Danny, want to cover the other items?
Yeah, the paratransit demand response software. We are still a little bit behind on our target date, but we closed the gap a little bit last week. I think we met with them about 3 times last week. I did list some milestones out there. I won't read them all off, but we are right in the middle right now of client destination importing. We hope to have that done by the 11th of October. And then really our go live date would be January 13th of 2025. And the opening of the passenger portal April 1st, which will allow our passengers to go in, book rides, check on their rides, cancel rides. That's the part we're pretty excited about, but we got to get the rest of it sorted out first before we allow other people to get in there and start doing their own stuff. So, and on the telephone replacement project, we're still working with consultants. We're on draft 4 of the RFP. We are pretty much on schedule to award that in early 2025. Any questions?
I just had a question on the go live, we go live January 13th.
Yes.
And then passenger portal on April 1st. Why is there such a gap there, I guess?
Because we want to make sure, they want to make sure that once we go live with it, that everything on our end is set, that all our staff, and obviously there's some training in there, we want to make sure that we have a vast understanding of how things are working and things are working correctly before we move forward, because we've never done a passenger portal before, so it's a big change for us and our staff. So we will make sure all of our stuff is set up well, and then there's some back end stuff that they need to do after we're set up and running correctly.
Just a couple other points on that is that we're obviously pushed out a couple extra months beyond what we thought we'd be at this point. Some of that's been due to the back end, bringing the system online. Not only do we have our database, but we also have Boone County's database and SMT's database. And then in the end, in terms of putting all the pieces together, was more complicated than anticipated and a lot more heavier lift than anticipated. The other portion that there was a bit of a challenge because we do Medicaid. There is another supplementary software portion of that to process those claims that also had to be integrated in. There was some additional work that needed to be done with that. So some of that gets to be, some of the delays associated with just the scope of our project and be a little more complicated than anticipated. So I want to make sure it's right as we kick it off. The other part I was going to mention, Passenger Portal is the direct passenger interface. So it's more kind of an app-based or web-based piece where they can interact. That doesn't mean that there will not be the notifications module launching at the same time as the go live date. So if you recall, we've talked about how we do a night before confirmation of your ride and give you the opportunity to book that online. Not only will that be available, but some other enhanced functionality be available in that notifications module that will roll out on January 13th. So right now we have phone notifications, but in general, that'll be expanded to phone, email, or text, right? So that you have a you can choose which one that you can interact and get information with. And not only will you get the night before notification, the option to cancel, but day of, you will also get the called imminent arrival of your trip. So you'll also, by any of those methods that you choose, be updated with your trip has been assigned to an operator. Get ready. Your trip is going to arrive in 15 minutes. Be ready, and your trip has arrived outside. So that notification module is actually part of the initial rollout, but it's an enhanced piece that we don't have now that's going to be part of it. So it's not one of those ones where, we're waiting on some other piece. That other piece we're waiting on is more of the interactive piece, but there is enhancement that will be noticed. That was there. Any other questions then on the telephone project? The other quick update would be on, if you may recall, we were engaged with several other agencies in the state on this effort to develop a request for proposal around enterprise asset management, enterprise resource management system. Basically, it's a replacement of our current financial system and our asset system, our maintenance system that we handle all of our maintenance functions on. And so that work continues with all the agencies. We had a round of calls with a number of prospective vendors, just so we understand what the world is out there. You know, is there a single product that does both, or are there products that may have to be interfaced together? And so all the agencies that are involved in the RFP development are going through that process. And so once everyone's done that, then we'll get back to the RFP and perhaps getting that on the street yet this late this fall or this winter, and see what responses we get from that, whether we move forward or not with replacement potentially for our existing system. So that work continues, and we haven't given an update on that one in a little bit. The other couple of things I'll note for the board on in terms of updates, the projects we've been working on, BRT study, provided an update last meeting on where we're at with that. The consultant conducted a draft findings workshop earlier this month. Some of the key findings, not surprisingly, the East State is our strongest corridor. But in addition to that, there was an opportunity to identify a second strong corridor. And so they're continuing a review and assessment of an additional option, mainly one that's tied to Kishwaukee. There's some discussion whether it's a Kishwaukee Rockton Riverside corridor or it's a Kishwaukee North Main corridor. So balancing all the key indicators of what makes the most sense is part of what they're looking at. Some of the other things that we're working on as part of that is just what the operational plan would look like associated with either one of those corridors, particularly with East State, and some complexities around that route, and what happens east of Alpine versus west of Alpine, and how do you handle that, and trying to do an assessment of some scenarios there, so that ultimately they can determine what potential operating expenses would be associated with those corridors. Because ultimately, how you want to operate it and how you want to phase it determines what's it going to cost on the operating side. And then for any of these two corridors, then working on what the capital cost estimates may be if we want to develop this corridor. So that's the next effort on that one, and we'll be circling back with them here in a week or so to go back through where they're at in those evaluation efforts, and we'll have another update. And then, aside from that, that's basically about it. Any other open items on projects? Any questions the board has? We'll move on. Right. So with that, then we can move on to item E4. And claims history report for July and August. It's in your packet for review. Any questions on that report? We did really well in July and back up in August, and kind of when you compare the two, it's about where we were the year before.
Yeah.
So that's how that kind of fluctuates. Yeah. So with that, if there's no other questions on the claims report, we can move on to the marketing section. First up, item A, we have approval of advertising contracts.
Okay, so 3 contracts for October. Remedies, they are been with us for a long time now. They have a domestic violence campaign that they're running. This is an example of what the ad will look like. So they got some grant funding for a month to run that. We also have a contract from the Northwest Ballers. It's a non-for-profit basketball organization that's having a fundraiser coming up in November that they're trying to get the word out to raise funds for at-risk youth to be able to travel and uniforms and things of that nature. So that's their advertisement contract. And then we also have Wintrust Bank that is opening up a new location down on East State Street. So they want to purchase a few shelters, including the shelter across the street from that location to advertise. So those are 3 advertisement contracts. Yeah.
Questions?
I'll move that we approve all 3 advertising contracts presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. And then special service requests.
It is that time of the year again, 12th annual Stroll on State. They always send these letters out so early, so it's always hard to remember when we brought it to the board, but we're bringing it now. So they're asking us to, pretty much provide the service that we've done for the last couple of years. Last year, we provided, 9 fixed route buses and 3 paratransit buses. They were, shuttles running, I wouldn't give a direct time, but they were running back and forth, to 3 different locations, to help individuals get to and from stroll and stay, kind of a park and ride situation. And that service was from about 1 to 10:30 p.m. 10:30 p.m. So, they're asking for that same thing, same locations. Went great last year. We had almost 6,000 passengers, last year. And in their letter, they're saying that they're expecting this one to be the grand poobah of it all. You know, to have a lot more people. So, who knows, that passenger count might go up as
Did they say
well.
that last year?
Yeah, they did. They say it every year.
We can't say no.
Right. So, yeah, that is the request. Any questions, concerns?
I think it's great exposure. for
Yeah.
RMTV.
Long day.
Provide the service.
All day.
So we obviously receive any kind of advertisements. Sponsor ourselves. Concerns.
I'll make the motion to, approve the event. See what's exactly, free rides to and from, that's
Stroll on stage.
to stroll on stage.
No, sorry. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Next item, we've got, down to E6 grants approval resolution 2407, the FTA committee funding application project. Paula?
Hi, yes, we're presenting, resolution R 2407 along with a community project funded grant for $2,318,333. We will be using that for a battery electric charging infrastructure, which will include a generator. Little background, it's a little different than what I usually submit to the grants. We actually went in 2022 to Senator Durbin and requested 11.7 million for alternative fuel vehicles along with the battery infrastructure. However, he put that in with, was it CTA and PACE, and there wasn't enough funding. Common thing. So he ended up directing him and Senators Durbin and Duckworth directed $6,715,000 to IDOT for our use for CTA, PACE, and RMTV. Then IDOT divided up the funds, and we ended up with the allocation of $2,318,333. Which is what we're applying for in this grant. So again, a little bit different than what we usually do, but this is, again, congressionally directed spending funds that were given to us. So I need the board to approve, R 2407 and along with the application for $2,318,333.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So a little context, we also included some supplementary information just for your review, so you can kind of keep track of where we're at, where we're headed relative to this entire project. Just going back, our original IDOT funding covered the base bid that we received from Scandoli and a number of items that are going to be associated with that project weren't covered by the available funding we had from IDOT. So we've got a number of different things that are out there on your sheet under the items to purchase yet. We've got roughly $3 million in other things, namely the bus charging infrastructure, its installation, bus wash, some other maintenance related items that are associated with the project, as well as the far line that highlight for you in blue there. We have about 1.6 million that was associated with the bids that came in, but didn't have available funding to fund them. Some of those go with the actual install of the charging equipment and the generator. So a small portion of that was associated with some brick facing walls on the project that weren't included. So base bid covered what's in the first column. We still got to buy all the things in the pink column. In the far right blue column are the things that were in the that we asked for bids on that we received that we couldn't afford with the amount of funding we had. So we have to buy those too. So essentially what this funding will do is it'll cover the charging infrastructure in the second column and the third column, its purchase and its installation, as well as some portions of the generator.
The full 2.1.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So that comes out to about, the estimate on that is roughly 2.1-ish million is the estimate we have for funding our project. So we should have some leftover funding to help supplement the purchase of an installation of a generator, and then we will be coming back to you once we line up the additional funding that we've identified to cover some of the remaining costs here associated with the project. So follow-ups. We'll come back to you next month. So that's all part of that, but this is a handy reference for any questions. Good chance to review that scope of good document for you to keep in. So we move forward with the project.
And that's a working document, so it changes as we go.
Living and breathing.
That's living and breathing. There you go.
All right. So if there's no other question with that, we'll move on to E7, the safety and training updates report for August. In your packet with any questions with that data. Seeing none, we can move on to other business. E8 other business, we already addressed item A. We'll move on to B. So included in your packet was a memo discussing free rides to and from polling locations on election day for both fixed route and paratransit. And some of you recall we've done this a number of years for the general elections, and I'll bring it back to the board again for your consideration for this year's general election. And it's obviously something that is great value to the community and making sure that transportation is not a barrier to accessing the polls. And so this is what we can do to make sure that that's not an issue. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the free rides to and from polling locations on election day.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item C, approval of the 2025-2026 diesel fuel contract. Dan?
Yes, our diesel fuel contract expires at the end of this calendar year, so I solicited bids. And my apologies, this should be dated today on the top there, not the 13th. So we solicited bids and prices are down, so it was favorable for us to look at an 18-month contract in lieu of 12, which also aligns us a little better with our fiscal year, being July 1. So we see I got two bids, $2.43 a gallon and $2.41 per gallon. We are currently paying $2.72 a gallon, so you can see quite a bit of price drop. We did budget for $2.77 a gallon, so that'll be some savings throughout the year for us there. So I am recommending that board approves the 18-month agreement with Conserve FS for an 18-month contract at the price of $2.41 a gallon, starting January 1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That includes that.
As long as you got a diesel truck.
So insurance costs a little bit more, but we're making it back a little bit here. Yeah.
Savings here.
Yeah, well, and taking out market volatility for the next 18 months is taking advantage of the lull.
Thank you.
All righty. With that, we're at the end of the main agenda. We do have an executive session today. So before we break, yeah.
We'll schedule the meeting, the next meeting will be Tuesday, October 27th.
I just mentioned that. So next meeting, got it. All right. So we'll adjust for that. Then we have executive sessions there.
We're gonna go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters pursuant to 5 CS 122 C2 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.
That we come out of executive session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Guys, want to adjourn?
Yes, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.